start right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cafecito with Christiana. I am Christiana. I'm so excited to have you here today. Again, the Cafecito is a series where we talk to everyday people doing extraordinary things. I'm so excited to have our guest today, Uche. Uche, help me pronounce your last name. I want to say Anyanwu.
Anyanwu, a little more how you say it.
That's really beautiful. What does your name mean?
The full name, Uche, means God's wisdom.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. God wisdom.
Thank you.
Do you ever see your name manifested in how you have lived your life up to this far?
It's funny, middle school or high school, when I started to get more in tune with who I am and be more comfortable with, just having a name that's so different and really understanding what that name means.
Yeah.
There's like different variations where it's like God's wisdom, God's thought, but just having that like guidance and wisdom there and that just thoughtfulness, I noticed, and I'm really proud to have it.
Oh my gosh, I completely love how you've been able to break down. Not everyone is able to kind of break down and see how their name has been manifested. And I love that you've taken time out to do that. Was it something that you were intentional about, or did it it was like happenstance where you were one day like doing something and then something was brought to your attention? Like, how do you get to that place where you're like, I am my name?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say some feedback I've always gotten just growing up or teachers would always say, Uche's a very conscientious learner, or she's a very thoughtful. So just hearing that, I think I've always heard it, and it didn't really mean anything at the time because to a certain extent, I kind of took that as I was just very reserved or more introverted in that way. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that's also a leadership trait, so I can lead from that way. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's like I can use that to my strength because it is my strength. So I think I've noticed it more loudly lately.
Wow, that's incredible. I can also attest, I didn't actually talk about how we connected. So we met, I think, like the beginning of last year when I went or something like that, that I went to. And I just remember you came out from somewhere and I was like, oh my God. I mean, you were so striking. You're obviously very beautiful, but your height, it was so captivating. You this was this goddess that was coming. And you're yet so humble. It's not something that, you carry around, like, open to connecting with people. And is that something that you've always kind of had, or did you develop it over time?
Yeah, I would say that I've developed. That's kind of for a larger portion of my life, I wasn't very confident in that. So I didn't really know how to use that to my advantage to like realize I can, realize I'm vulnerable, like I'm not perfect, and just kind of lead from that way so others know it's okay to be like yourself. And if you are more introverted or you just are quiet, like it's okay to be that way. It's okay to be however you are. So I think as I've gotten older, I've really stepped into that because I would have loved to have known that was okay when I was younger, that you can just kind of operate from a different way and it can still be, it can still bring people together, you don't have to lead from a certain way to be a leader.
I agree with you so much. I think that's something that I had to learn over the course of my early career. I would say for me, it took women of color. I think it wasn't even just luck. I feel so blessed to be able to have had early on in my career women, but especially women of color, because I didn't necessarily get that in undergrad. or excuse me, in
Mm-hmm.
secondary education, but I did get it in my undergrad school years where I grew up with very strong women and Black women, of course, but to walk with confidence. Don't let them see you
Yeah.
sweat. All these kind of very loving yet instructional tools to help me navigate through this space so that as a woman coming of age, a woman of color, in
Mm-hmm.
my career, recognizing that I'm not always going to get the same level of compassion and forgiveness when I make slip ups that my white female counterparts would get, and definitely my white male and overcome whatever it is that is set before me.
Yeah.
And I think, to your credit, you have shared a little bit about how you, in your early years, recognized that the self-confidence that was needed just with under. So let's talk
Still a
about,
journey though.
huh?
So it's still a journey though.
It is still a space, but let's talk a little bit about, who you are. So you work in the tech space, and what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so a little bit about me is I currently work in the tech space. I work at Intuit. And at Intuit, I most recently moved into a role where I am focused around customer experience, which I'm so excited about. And I think just really aligns with where I want to go as far as my purpose and aligning like purpose and career. So in this role, what I'm starting to do is testing and just designing and how do we implement different experiences for customers when they're having issues with our products and our services. Like, how do we focus on each individual customer and really apply that so we're never satisfied with losing them? And I really love every individual is important, but we all have different experiences and different hardships. So I'm excited to see how to just apply my perspective and how I'm so comfortable sharing my vulnerability, and excited to just focus on those who've been underserved. And I'm applying that perspective to the work we do.
Yeah, definitely. I know I was really excited when we connected. You also, that is your main role, but the way in the business way where we became partners with you guys is through another organization that you're a part of within the company. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I also am a co-leader with the Intuit African Ancestry Employee Resource Group. So we have those around our different locations. In San Diego, I co-lead with my counterpartner, Ola, and we have kickstarted this group about 2 years ago. Because how employee resource groups work is there does need to be like someone leading it and kind of pushing that initiative. I've been so Ola and I so much fun just really getting more involved in the community and figuring out how we can be a better bridge, kind of representing Intuit in our community, and just showing professionals who look like us what little snippets into what life at Intuit is like. So yeah, that's how we were connected, and it's been such a fun experience, with the mission there to kind of grow, inspire, and connect our employees, our company, and our community.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how you all have kind of taken the lead in setting a standard for how even we look at folks who want to transition into the tech space. I appreciated about the initiative that you and your team has put into place is that you're looking for folks who are not necessarily fitting in the cookie cutter mold that has been set up as to what a tech person looks about like. The road that got you here.
Sure. That's a great way to get into it. I will say before I found myself at Intuit, a little bit about me, like personally, is I'm a San Diego native. I was born and raised in San Diego. I'm also a daughter of Nigerian immigrants. What else? I'm a former Division I rower, so athletics is a huge part about my life
like
too.
Rowing, like that
Yeah.
row in your. Incredible. Wow.
Yeah. I would say just kind of those little nuggets
Mm-hmm.
are kind of integral to who I am, like being the daughter of Nigerian immigrants. I really dived into that, or, just really unpacked that a little bit more recently about how that's kind of shaped who I am and how I think and how I just perceive, and
Yeah.
how that can be such a unique perspective as well. The way they can provide financial guidance to people, and people's financial lives are really so important, and it really just dictates so many decisions that can happen to them. So being like the daughter of Nigerian immigrants, my parents came here and they didn't have as much different, like just financial decisions they were making, or just how to start a life in a different country. Like, they had to learn so much so fast, and that's really tough. And some of just the decisions that they had made, just not knowing just how to really empower yourself, or just not knowing different tips or tricks to really really just build that financial knowledge base you need to even get to, a place of financial stability and wealth. I didn't really have that. So that really has impacted just where I operate from, and how I'm so passionate about just using. I feel like a lot of people can use whatever platform we have, like whether it is like more social tools, or is it, just conversations you're going to have with your friends and family. Like, how can you use the information you have to give back? The information is so huge, and I can just see how important that was to my parents, and just not having resources, or not feeling comfortable asking, or just that vulnerability there. I'm really interested in just really building that out, and how you can use different tools that we have right now as far as like professional development.
Yeah.
And how can we kind of change that and empower ourselves, and build that, generational wealth I think we're all kind of looking for. So I think that's kind of been huge for me lately, is just realizing that's also why where I'm kind of driving my purpose. I kind of use my platform to be more vulnerable about those type of things, because I work at a company like Intuit, but I don't have my stuff together. I'm not an expert by any means. I just want to kind of contribute what I know and what I'm doing, and just how I'm trying to, I'm just trying, like, I think like a lot of us, just trying to make it and just create something a little bit bigger for yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to kind of be vulnerable in sharing that, because it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, but just having people to relate to is, I think, a huge part that can really lead to a lot of success. So yeah, a little bit about me.
Resonate because, again, I think about, coming out of college in '01, and like trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do with my career? What do I want to do with my life? And having, at the time, I had 9/11 happen. So it wasn't like there was so much uncertainty. I think back then, and what's happening right now, I think which direction do we turn next, and how do we grow with this? But that's huge, right? That's the career part. The other part that I think you talked about that resonated with me is being vulnerable, because that's not something that women, especially women of color, I feel like are like permitted to do. And it's because we have to have this guard up. We have to, watch what we say and how we say it. And because, we, there's just so much writing. It's like we're carrying, and it's not just, Black women, but also our Black males. And just our, to expand it, just our other counterparts, our Latin brothers and sisters, and even so much on our shoulders for, I'm the only one in here, so I need to make sure that I'm, doing my part to make sure I don't mess it up for anyone else that needs to come in after me, or I can help bring in here. And I think that it is so valuable for us to talk about this openly, because I don't, it's too much for us to carry this burden of I need to be a certain way, and to be able, I think our generation is changing the narrative in that, yeah, you know, we recognize that we may be one of the few that is knocking down the door, breaking down the door,
Mm-hmm.
or breaking down the wall step by step, brick by brick, but that we're going to do it on our own terms. And we're
Yeah.
going to ensure that our mind, body, and spirit is, for the most part, intact while we're doing it, so that we can come out on the other side thriving and not surviving. And then also, to your point, being able to change the narrative in our community about how generational wealth is going to be secured for our
Mm-hmm.
community, taking that back. Understanding how do you do it. So how would you say that you've kind of figured out how to be vulnerable, and who to be vulnerable in front of?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I have something. I'm just really testing what's going to work for me. And right now,
I
before I
love
was
that,
little
straight up.
too,
I don't know. I'm throwing this out there.
just testing. It'll probably change
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out that well.
Right.
But I think before I was a little more just restrictive on what I would say or what I would put out there, because it, like, to what you were saying, you know, I was very concerned with just how that would look to people, or am I saying the right thing because of all of the burden that's on me, or, you know, whether it's self-inflicted or not, you know, there is burden there. So I'm really cautious about, I'm going to do my part to make sure I don't put that pressure on me. Like, it's okay if I say something stupid. We all do. And it's like, what happens when you do that is you just kind of, you know, apologize when necessary or just learn from it. So I think I'm being a lot more gentle with myself, that I'm going to make mistakes, and it's going to be interesting figuring out just how I can use my voice, and remembering that we're all human in this. So I can't be perfect. It's not going to look perfect. So let me just try, because not trying is going to be what I'm going to regret.
Wow. Wow. Do you have women in the workspace that you feel that you can have as confidence, that you can turn to?
You know, yes and no, because in the workspace, within like the work I do with the African Ancestry Network, yeah, there's a lot of support there. There's a lot of community there. And I've actually grown a lot by just having them, like, you know, pour in confidence into me and just share what they've gone through in the corporate life. And that's been really helpful. But outside of that space, I think that's something I'm still looking for and still finding. It's kind of easier to find that socially, like on LinkedIn, like meeting people on that platforms. But in my corporate space, I think that's a little bit harder, just because there aren't a lot of Black women in leadership positions that, first of all, there aren't a lot of Black women in leadership positions, like, period.
Right.
And then let alone, there just aren't, I don't know if we're getting to that place of vulnerability yet where, you know, I would feel comfortable just being so open with, you know, just not knowing, you know, I'm not sure if I would find that yet, but.
Yeah. And maybe you're going to be that person, you know, for that workspace.
True.
And then bring others in. But yeah, that's really cool. So, you know, often when I sit down with folks, I love exploring how they're navigating through this new norm that we are faced with. And I shared a little bit about, how are you navigating through this time?
Yeah. I think just keeping it day by day. Because I'm a very future-oriented person, so it's been kind of hard for me. There's absolutely zero control in this. So I think that's kind of been probably a helpful lesson for me, honestly, to have right now, is just take it day by day. Like, what can you control in your day? And just really keeping that top of mind, because when you kind of plan it that way, like how can I control like how I'm, feeling my body? How can I control how I'm just pouring into myself as far as self-care goes? Like how can I control what I'm learning and developing like, in this time?
Yeah.
Things like that is how I kind of think about it, because it makes it more actionable and just easier for me to keep going day by day.
I'm learning how to let go of the outcome. So I'm in the journey. I'm in the journey. I'm doing, what I need to while I'm on here and seeking guidance on how can I control what is controllable while I'm navigating through. So I'm operating in the right flow, but that how it unfolds, I have to let go of that. And that's been an interesting process for me, because it does require me to start working on something and say, don't, it's going to manifest, but don't try to form what it's going to look like. It's clay. Don't try to mold it. Just let the clay tell you what it wants to be, that kind of thing, which is different from me. But that's how I've been able to get through this time. And so it's kind of similar to what you were that day.
I really love that analogy you had, though, is just not having any, like, the outcome isn't what you're concerned about. I think that's awesome, because it's like, even through whatever happens, how do you turn it into something more valuable is how you're looking at it too. And I really love that. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say is your call to action for others, but is in a position to do something, make an impact, but really don't know where to start or how? What would you share with them?
That's a really good question. Wow. I mean, that was me not too long ago. And I think what I would have told myself is just start. And I know a lot of people say that is just start, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I would just say that like over and over and over again. It doesn't have to be perfect. And even if you just start and it doesn't work, you can always pivot and say, this is a new test I'm trying to see if this works. That's kind of how I would approach it. And then as I'm doing that, I would say a huge thing that would help just with that accountability part is sharing what you're trying to do with somebody. Social media, it doesn't always have to be just telling like your sister just what you're trying to do, and hey, could you just hold me accountable, or could you, nudge me along when you see me, not following through with what I said I was going to do. So that's kind of helped me is just be more accountable, bring my sister along. I use an analogy because I actually do that. I tell my sister kind of what I'm trying to do, or when I know I'm getting in my head and I'm holding myself back, trying to trying this, or, I'm starting to doubt myself. Just help me turn it around, And things like that really help, because you just have to start somewhere. And I think that's really important, is just like committing to the start, because the process is going to change. But if you're like, I'm going to be along for this ride, I'm committed, and I have someone in my corner like helping me and pushing me when I start to, get unmotivated, I think that would be kind of helpful.
That I think is the most valuable thing you could ever say, and the greatest investment you could ever do for yourself, which is reach out to someone and ask them to hold you accountable. Because accountability, the three factors for me is obedience, discipline, and sacrifice. If I'm willing to do those things, because to your point, when you were saying, if you're willing to commit, when I'm willing to commit, I'm willing to be obedient, I'm willing to make sacrifices, and I'm willing to be disciplined. Like, that is my commitment right there. In order for me to keep my commitment, the accountability, like, boom, drop mic, Uche, because that's it right there.
I'm writing that down. That's good.
Girl, I was about to say, look, you're going to get me back into my ebook. Listen, let's go ahead and put something together. No, but seriously, that right there, in order of whatever it is that you said you're going to do, those three factors. Girl, I think we just saw, listen, let's go ahead and write this up. I think we need to thank those that are in the 9-to-5 space, because those of you all who are in corporate, you guys are going to the battlefield every day. And I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to go in a board meeting and you're the only woman in there. You're the only woman of color in there, pushing for the agenda that is going to change the landscape of how Intuit looks. I want to thank you. Thank you for going in there day after day after day, even though it's something that you love to do. There are, like you said, cons to everything that you and I choose to take on in our life. So I thank you so much for everything that you're doing in that space. I do not take it lightly, what you do. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being an essential worker. You are essential.
And I thank you, Christiana, honestly, for just providing platforms like this, opportunities like this, and just the work you and Luis are doing with like We the Plug. It's also changing the game, and I'm excited just to be along for that, and excited to see where we go.
Yeah, you're right. It takes all hands on deck. I always say that. Shoulder to shoulder, locking arms. That's the only way we're going to get this done. Well, thank you again, Uche, for taking out time to connect and share a little bit about your story and just how you're changing the landscape on how we as a people look forward and having more conversation with you in the future. You all check our website out, We the Plug, THA.com, to learn more about Uche and learn more about her. Go to our membership page. You can follow her on there. You can chat with her. Her links to her Instagram, sorry, not Instagram. She is not letting y'all on Instagram. She don't know y'all like that. Her LinkedIn. What is your LinkedIn? It's your name, right?
Yeah, Uche Anyanwu.
Yeah, so you can find her on there as well. And again, thank you so much for taking out time to share your thoughts with us. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We definitely will as well. Love and light to you.
Likewise. Enjoy your weekend, Christiana, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Talk soon.
Will do. Bye.